What if I told you that the absolutely insane theories you built around your favourite movies are actually canon? Have you ever argued with your friends, trying to prove that two characters were secretly related, or that the real villain was someone completely different from the obvious suspect? Today, we are diving deep into the world of fan theories that went from simple rumours and forum chatter to official, confirmed truth. Get ready. We're going to break down 50 unbelievable instances where viewers proved to be sharper than the screenwriters, predicting the greatest plot twist in the history of film and television. After watching this video, you'll start looking at Easter eggs and small details completely differently. Maybe your own crazy theory is next on this list. Before we begin, let's establish what a fan theory actually is. It's not just a random guess. It's a full investigation, built on minute details, fragmented dialogue, visual cues, and a profound knowledge of the universe. With the rise of the internet forums like Reddit, and, of course, YouTube, fan communities have evolved into true collective minds. They are capable of analysing massive volumes of information and spotting connections that escape the average viewer. Sometimes the creators dismiss these theories outright, but occasionally, very rarely, which makes it all the more precious, they admit, "Yes, damn it, you were right." Today, we're going to discuss exactly 50 of those moments, the times when the collective genius of the fans achieved victory. We're kicking things off with an absolute classic, a theory that dominated fantasy community discussions for decades. We're talking, of course, about A, Song of Ice and Fire, and the famous R plus L to do J theory. The premise is simple. Jon Snow is not Ned Stark's bastard son. He is the child of Rhaegar Targaryen and Ned's own sister, Lyanna Stark. Book fans pieced the evidence together bit by bit. Why would Ned Stark, the ultimate paragon of honour, betray his marriage vows? Why was he so vague about Jon's parentage? The central piece of evidence was Lyanna's dying words, whispered to her brother in the Tower of Joy. "Promise me, Ned." Fans theorised she was asking him to protect her newborn son from Robert Baratheon, who had vowed to exterminate every single Targaryen. Even the title, A Song of Ice and Fire, hinted at the union between the Starks, ice, and the Targaryens, fire. Years were spent debating, until the 6th season of the HBO series, Game of Thrones, finally delivered Bran's pivotal vision. In that scene, we saw a young Lyanna dying with a newborn infant, whom she entrusted to Ned. It was a stunning triumph of fan deduction, one that completely reshaped the political landscape of Westeros and established Jon Snow as the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Now let's turn our attention to the Harry Potter universe. This world also harboured a fan theory that felt far too grim to be true, yet it turned out to be central to the entire narrative. We are talking about the unsettling idea that Harry Potter himself was one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. For years, fans puzzled over the undeniable connection between the boy who lived and the Dark Lord. Why could Harry speak Parseltongue, the snake language that was the unique hallmark of the Slytherin lineage? Why did his scar throb whenever Voldemort was near or experiencing intense emotion? And why were there once perfect twins? The most astute readers hypothesised that on the night the killing curse rebounded off Harry and struck Voldemort, his already shattered and unstable soul fragmented once more. A tiny sliver of that soul then latched onto the only living thing present, the infant Harry. This elegantly explained their mental connection and the source of the boy's unusual powers. J.K. Rowling finally confirmed this haunting theory in Deathly Hallows, when the truth was revealed to Harry through Snape's memories. This meant that for Voldemort to be truly defeated, Harry himself had to perish. It was an incredibly tragic and powerful twist, one that fans had managed to decode long before the final pages were turned. Now let's talk about a fan theory that was so obvious yet so brilliant that its confirmation brought roaring applause in theatres. We're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the identity of Stan Lee. The legendary comic book creator appeared in every film in a hilarious cameo. He played a strip club DJ, a security guard, a war veteran, and a bus driver, among others. Fans started to joke, what if these weren't just different people who looked alike? What if it was the exact same character travelling through space and time? Thus, the theory was born. Stan Lee is actually the Watcher. In the comics, the Watchers are an ancient alien race who observe every event in the universe but are strictly forbidden from interfering. It was the perfect explanation for all his appearances. And then, in Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2, director James Gunn officially made the theory canon. In one scene, we see Stan Lee, in a spacesuit, perched on an asteroid, recounting stories to a group of tall, robed figures, the Watchers themselves. He says, "Oh, that time I was a delivery guy," directly referencing his cameo from Captain America: Civil War. It was a magnificent tribute both to the creator and the fans, which solidified a running joke as an official part of the MCU lore. Remember the classic Disney movie, Aladdin? Right at the beginning, we meet that street merchant trying to sell us a lamp before launching into the story. He was voiced by the same actor as the genie, the legendary Robin Williams. He also had 4 fingers, just like the genie, and he wore blue robes with a red sash. Fans quickly put 2 and 2 together and developed a theory. The merchant was the genie, who, after gaining his freedom, travelled the world telling the epic story of his best friend, Aladdin. It was a sweet, heartwarming theory that made the movie's ending even more touching. For years, though, it remained just speculation. But in 2015, the film's co-directors, Ron Clements and John Musker, finally gave an official answer. They confirmed that yes, this was their original intent all along. In the movie's final scene, the merchant was supposed to remove his turban and reveal himself to be the genie. Unfortunately, the scene was cut during editing, but the underlying idea was there from the very start. So yes, every time you rewatch Aladdin, know this: the story is being told to you by the one and only genie himself. Let's dive into the world of high technology and existential crisis. The series, Westworld. Season 1 was packed with mysteries, but the biggest one revolved around 2 characters, the kind and naive newcomer, William, and the cruel, cynical man in black, obsessed with finding the maze. Fans on Reddit quickly spotted inconsistencies and hypothesized that the show was actually depicting 2 different timelines simultaneously. The theory that William and the man in black were the exact same person just decades apart. The evidence was everywhere. The park logo William saw was an older version. Furthermore, some of the android hosts William encountered had already been retired or shelved in the Man in Black's timeline. Most importantly, their storylines were mirror images. William was falling in love with Dolores, while the Man in Black was utterly obsessed with her. Fans created elaborate charts and graphs to prove their theory, and by the season finale, it was confirmed 100%. The Man in Black himself revealed that long ago he had arrived with his future brother-in-law, fell in love, but his heart was broken, turning him into the ruthless character we knew. It was a massive plot twist that the audience managed to solve long before the writers officially revealed it. We're looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe again, but this time the focus is a bit more localized, yet still incredibly interesting. In Iron Man 2 Wicks, there's a short but highly memorable scene. During the drone attack at the Stark Expo, one of the robots targets a little boy wearing an Iron Man toy helmet. The boy bravely puts his hand up, and just then, the real Iron Man lands behind him, destroys the drone, and says, "Nice shot, kid." For years, this was just a cute, nameless child. But fans, known for their sharp eyes and love of detail, started asking, what if that was a young Peter Parker? The timeline and location certainly lined up. The expo took place in Queens, which is where Peter lives, and the boy was clearly interested in science and idolised Tony Stark. This theory circulated online for years, until 2017 when Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man, finally confirmed it in an interview. He mentioned discussing it with Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige, who essentially said, "Yeah, let's just go with that." The connection was later officially confirmed. Thus, a small, seemingly insignificant moment transformed into the very first meeting between two of Marvel's greatest heroes, adding an incredible amount of depth to their future relationship. Ridley Scott's iconic film, Blade Runner, left behind one of cinema's greatest enduring questions. Is the main character, replicant hunter Rick Deckard, actually a replicant himself? Fans quickly separated into two distinct camps. Those who supported the theory pointed directly to Deckard's dream of a unicorn. In the director's cut of the film, another character, Gaff, leaves him an origami unicorn. This strongly suggested that Deckard's dreams were simply implanted memories, known only to his creators. Opponents, however, argued that this interpretation destroys the film's entire core message about the search for humanity. Ridley Scott himself has stated repeatedly that, in his view, Deckard is unequivocally a replicant, yet actor Harrison Ford always insisted on the opposite. The dispute raged for decades. The sequel, Blade Runner 2049 seemingly provided a final answer. In it, Deckard had aged, which is atypical for older model replicants. However, the film never gave a direct answer, intentionally leaving the question open. But for the majority of fans, and crucially, for the creator of the universe himself, the theory holds true. Deckard is a machine hunting other machines, and that is the ultimate tragedy of his existence. This ambiguity only fuels the debate, but the author's position remains clear. Let's return to Hogwarts. Aside from the Horcruxes, there was another major mystery surrounding Albus Dumbledore and his family. The Harry Potter books introduce us to the tragic story of his sister, Ariana. As a child, she was attacked by Muggle boys, an event that left her magical abilities uncontrolled and incredibly dangerous. She accidentally killed her mother and eventually died herself during the three-way duel involving Albus, his brother Aberforth, and Gellert Grindelwald. Fans immediately drew parallels between this description and a new concept introduced in the film, fantastic beasts and where to find them. The Obscurus. An Obscurus is a dark, uncontrolled magical entity that develops within young wizards or witches who suppress their powers. Ariana's erratic behaviour perfectly matched the description. The running theory suggested that Ariana Dumbledore was the first known Obscurial in the wizarding world. Once again, J.K. Rowling confirmed the fans' suspicions. In an interview, she stated outright that yes, Ariana was an Obscurial, and this tragedy fundamentally shaped Dumbledore's later life and his conflict with Grindelwald. This revelation casts a new, even darker light on the history of the greatest wizard of all time. What about a fan theory that actually got a nod from another franchise? At the start of The Little Mermaid, Prince Eric's ship sinks during a terrifying storm. Years later, we see the release of Frozen, where the King and Queen of Arendelle, Anna and Elsa's parents, perish on a tragic sea journey. Fans quickly made a connection. They realised that the Arendelle royals' route might have taken them right past the setting of The Little Mermaid, which is believed to be based near Denmark. This sparked a massive theory. The sunken ship that Ariel explores is actually the very vessel that carried Anna and Elsa's parents. This seemingly tied two major animated films into one cohesive universe. For a long time, this was just a fun piece of speculation. But then, Chris Buck, one of the directors of Frozen, who also happened to work on Tarzan, poured fuel on the fire. Buck publicly stated his own personal version of events. The king and queen didn't actually die at sea. Instead, they washed up on the shores of a jungle, built a treehouse, and had a son, Tarzan. Their subsequent death, of course, was at the claws of a leopard. Now, this isn't considered 100% official canon. However, the fact that the actual creators support and elaborate on these theories speaks volumes. For countless Disney fans, this serves as an unofficial, yet extremely satisfying, confirmation of a unified shared fairy tale universe. The renowned series, Breaking Bad, is famous for its meticulous attention to detail, and one major fan theory actually hinges on exactly one of those seemingly insignificant details. In Season 2, Jesse Pinkman starts dating a girl named Jane. Her father, Donald, works as an air traffic controller. After Walter White allows Jane to die from an overdose, her father, consumed by grief, makes a catastrophic error at work. He mistakenly directs two passenger planes onto the same course, leading to a devastating mid-air collision over Albuquerque. Fans quickly theorized that the disaster wasn't just a random event. They started scouring the show for any mention of those specific flights before the crash, and they found something. In an episode long before the tragedy, a news report on TV mentions a missing Georgia O'Keeffe painting. Later in the season, when the plane wreckage is shown, look closely. Among the debris, you can spot the very same one-eyed pink teddy bear featured in that painting. Essentially, the show foreshadowed the catastrophe, linking it specifically to the works of art that Jane loves so much. Series creator Vince Gilligan confirmed that all these details were placed there intentionally. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a brilliant example of screenwriting where every minute detail truly matters. And the fans completely nailed it. Let's journey back to a galaxy far, far away. Before the release of Episode 7, the biggest mystery in the Star Wars universe was the true origin of its new protagonist, Rey. Fans crafted dozens of theories. Was she Luke Skywalker's daughter? Obi-Wan Kenobi's granddaughter? Or perhaps even the reincarnation of Anakin himself? But lurking among these was a much darker theory, one hinted at by some unsettling details. Her aggressive, almost reckless fighting style mirrored that of Palpatine. Plus, her raw, innate power in the Force required almost no training, which heavily suggested a connection to the Emperor. This led to the shocking speculation. Rey was a direct descendant of Darth Sidious, Emperor Palpatine. Many fans dismissed this theory, finding the idea too straightforward or perhaps too dramatic. However, the final film, The Rise of Skywalker, confirmed that this outlandish theory was correct. It was revealed that Rey was, in fact, Palpatine's granddaughter, hidden on Jakku by her father, in a desperate effort to shield her from the Emperor. While this reveal caused massive controversy within the fandom, one thing is undeniable. The fans who staked their claim on the Palpatine theory were proven right. They spotted subtle clues where others saw mere coincidence, successfully predicting one of the sequel trilogy's biggest and most divisive plot twists. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense remains one of the most iconic films known for its legendary twist ending. But what if I told you that many viewers figured out the main secret, the pivotal twist, long before the credits rolled? The core fan theory was straightforward. Bruce Willis's character, Dr. Malcolm Crowe, was dead the entire time. He was, in fact, killed by a former patient during the movie's opening scene. All of his subsequent interactions were solely with the young boy, Cole, who, as we know, sees dead people. Sharp-eyed viewers quickly compiled a list of damning evidence. Malcolm never speaks to anyone other than Cole. His wife constantly ignores him, acting as if he isn't even in the room. He is unable to physically interact with objects, failing even to open the door to his own office. Crucially, he wears the exact same clothes he had on the night he died. When this theory first surfaced online, many initially dismissed it as a massive spoiler or mere fan fabrication. However, the final scene, where Malcolm finally recognizes the truth about his own existence, cemented the entire narrative. This was a unique case where a fan theory was so logical and so overwhelmingly supported by in-movie clues that its official confirmation truly felt like a formality. The film itself gave all the necessary hints. Only the most observant fans were able to piece the puzzle together. Doctor Who is a show packed with mysteries, but one question tormented fans for years. Who exactly is River Song? This enigmatic archaeologist knew the Doctor's future, yet remained a complete stranger to him. Their timelines ran in opposite directions. When she first meets him, she already knows his name and dies saving him. When he meets her, he has no idea who she is. Fans concocted countless theories about her origins. The most popular, and arguably the wildest, was that River Song was actually Melody Pond, the daughter of the Doctor's companions Amy and Rory. Supporting this idea was the fact that in one episode, River whispers the Doctor's real name, a secret known only to his absolute closest confidants. Further fueling the speculation, it was revealed that the word for river, in the language of the Gamma Forests, translates directly to song. Writer Stephen Moffat masterfully kept viewers guessing, but eventually confirmed the fans' suspicions. In the episode A Good Man Goes to War, we learn that Amy and Rory's child was kidnapped and engineered to become a weapon against the Doctor. By the episode's conclusion, River finally reveals that she is indeed the grown-up Melody Pond. It was a shocking and incredibly emotional moment, one that fans had predicted with astonishing accuracy. In the world of comics, there is one particular story that was, for a long time, considered nothing more than a bold fan theory. We are referring to Alan Moore's seminal work, The Killing Joke, which presents one possible version of the Joker's origin. In the finale of this story, after yet another brutal, bloody confrontation, Batman and the Joker stand together in the pouring rain. The Joker tells a cynical joke about two lunatics trying to escape an asylum. Following the punchline, both characters break into laughter. In the very last panel, however, Batman's laughter abruptly ceases, and his hand is seen reaching toward the Joker's shoulder. Fans immediately speculated the worst, that Batman, finally broken, violated his core principle and killed the Joker right then and there, potentially snapping his neck. This dark interpretation was fueled by the sudden stop in laughter and the very ambiguity of the title itself, The Killing Joke. For years this remained merely a persistent interpretation. But then, in 2013, writer Grant Morrison, one of the most respected authorities on Batman comics, publicly endorsed this theory during a podcast. He stated that to him, the ending was obvious. Batman kills his arch nemesis. While this dark interpretation is still not considered 100% canon across the entire DC universe, the fact that one of Batman's core ideological writers validated the fan theory essentially gives it an official, if unofficial, status. Pixar's Up kicks off with one of the most heartbreaking sequences in animated history, chronicling the entire life of Carl and his wife, Ellie. Following her death, Carl decides to finally fulfill their shared dream, reaching Paradise Falls. But what if the story isn't that simple? A dark fan theory suggests that Carl Fredricksen actually died in his sleep the night before he was scheduled to be moved to a retirement home. In this interpretation, his entire subsequent journey in the flying house is his spiritual passage to the afterlife. There are several points that strongly support this reading. The house, symbolizing his connection to his earthly life, lifts him up toward the heavens. The young wilderness explorer, Russell, is viewed as his guardian angel, attempting to earn his wings, the badge for assisting the elderly. And Paradise Falls is simply that, paradise itself. Even Charles Muntz, the film's villain, fits perfectly as a fallen angel, trapped outside of heaven. While the theory is logical, it is undoubtedly somber. However, upon closer examination, it doesn't negate the beauty of the story. Rather, it simply adds immense depth to the narrative. Officially, Pixar has never confirmed or denied this interpretation, but the structure of the storytelling and the strength of the symbolism are so powerful that for many fans, this theory has become the true meaning of the film. It's one of those rare cases where official authorial confirmation isn't even necessary because the evidence feels so compelling. For 9 seasons, How I Met Your Mother charted the winding path of how Ted Mosby finally met the mother of his children. But as the story unfolded, sharp-eyed fans began noticing unsettling clues. Every single anecdote involving the mother, Tracy, was always narrated strictly in the past tense. In one pivotal episode, Ted reads a book and imagines growing old with Tracy, only to break down and weep at the end. In another instance, he states definitively that no mother should ever miss her daughter's wedding. All these subtle hints coalesced into one heartbreaking fan theory. By the time Ted is telling the story, the mother is already gone. She had died, and Ted was recounting the entire tale to his children, subconsciously seeking their permission to finally move on and be with Robin again. This theory was immensely unpopular. After 9 years of investment, viewers desperately refused to believe the show would culminate in such a devastating ending, and they accused anyone supporting the idea of being overly pessimistic. But the series finale ultimately confirmed this exact scenario. Tracy had indeed passed away from an illness, and Ted eventually reunites with Robin. While the ending sparked outrage among many, the observant fans who had paid close attention to the clues were proven right all along. They had deciphered the bitter truth the writers managed to hide until the final moments. Ridley Scott's film, Alien, launched an entire cinematic universe. But the very first film left fans with a profound, nagging question. When the Nostromo crew landed on LV-426, they discovered a mysterious, derelict spaceship belonging to an alien race, later dubbed the Space Jockeys. Inside, they found a gigantic pilot with its chest burst open, and a cargo hold full of xenomorph eggs. This begged the question, did these highly advanced beings engineer this biological weapon themselves? Or had they too fallen victim to it? The leading fan theory suggested the jockeys weren't the creators, but merely carriers. They had found the eggs on a different planet and were transporting them, perhaps for study, when one specimen broke free and wiped out the entire crew. This theory neatly explained why the ship had crash-landed and why the pilot was dead. Decades later, Ridley Scott returned to the universe with Prometheus, and he completely validated the fan speculation. Prometheus introduced us to the engineers, the jockeys themselves. We learned that they didn't create the xenomorphs directly, but rather a deadly black goo capable of mutating living organisms. The classic xenomorph, it turned out, was the result of an accidental chain of infections and subsequent mutations. So yes, the fans were correct. The Nostromo crew didn't stumble upon an arms depot. They found the aftermath of a biological disaster. In the BBC series Sherlock, the writers consistently teased the audience, peppering the show with Easter eggs referencing the original Conan Doyle stories. One of the original books mentioned a third Holmes sibling named Sherrinford, who supposedly surpassed both Sherlock and Mycroft in intellect. Naturally, fans immediately speculated that this super genius would appear in their favourite modern adaptation. Hints were everywhere. In one episode, Mycroft delivers the infamous line, "I'm not in the mood for childish upsets, Sherlock. You know what happened to the other one." That comment sent the internet into a frenzy. Everyone was convinced this referred to the third brother. Speculation began immediately. Was he a secret villain? Was he secretly assisting Sherlock? But the truth turned out to be far more shocking. In Season 4, the existence of a third Holmes sibling was confirmed. However, it wasn't a brother, but a sister. Eurus. She was a genius, yet also a high-functioning psychopath. As a child, she set fire to their ancestral home and was widely presumed dead. In reality, Mycroft had hidden her away in a secret maximum security facility reserved for the most dangerous criminals. So, fans were right about the main point. A third Holmes sibling existed. They only got the gender wrong, but they solved the core mystery correctly. Here is an example of a fan theory that the creators eventually confirmed, albeit with some hesitation. In Avatar, The Legend of Korra, the two main female leads, Korra and Asami, initially spent most of the series as rivals, vying for the attention of the same guy, Mako. However, fans began to notice their dynamic shifting. Their relationship grew much closer and warmer. They supported and genuinely cared for each other, developing a unique chemistry unlike any they shared with the male characters. This led to the birth of the Korra-Sami theory. Fans created fan fiction, drew art, and firmly believed that Korra and Asami would end up together in the series finale. A major LGBTQ+ romance in a children's cartoon on Nickelodeon seemed almost impossible at the time, but the creators decided to take the leap. In the final scene, Korra and Asami entered the spirit world, holding hands and gazing at each other tenderly. It was handled incredibly subtly, no kissing or outright declaration, and many viewers actually missed the implication entirely. However, series creators Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino later used their blogs to officially confirm it. Yes, Korra and Asami are a couple. They are in love. This was a massive, groundbreaking step for representation in kids' animation, all thanks to the fans who saw that love and believed in its potential. David Fincher's Fight Club stands as another classic example of a film with an iconic twist that sharp-eyed viewers managed to predict long before the final reveal. The prevailing fan theory suggested that the narrator, played by Edward Norton, and Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, were in fact the same individual. More accurately, Tyler was the narrator's alter ego, his projection, the physical manifestation of everything he wished he could be: brave, free, and an outright anarchist. Subtle clues were strategically placed throughout the entire film. For instance, Tyler appears in several subliminal split-second flashes even before the two characters formally meet. During their famous fights, the staging and sound design strongly imply that the narrator is hitting empty air, or perhaps just beating himself up. The infamous car scene provided another massive giveaway. One moment Tyler is driving, but when the camera cuts back, the narrator is behind the wheel and the passenger seat is conspicuously empty. In a crucial phone conversation, viewers who paid close attention could hear that while Tyler's character was speaking, the actual voice cadence belonged to the narrator. Collectively, these anomalies pointed toward a clear diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. And of course, the iconic climax, where the narrator shoots himself in the head to finally eliminate Tyler, confirmed the theory beyond a shadow of a doubt. It remains a classic example of how a film rewards observant viewers, allowing them to truly feel like they dug up the truth themselves. The Marvel Universe is once again diving deep into the consequences of cosmic events. Following Avengers Endgame, the devastation of Thanos' initial snap that wiped out half of all life, and Hulk's heroic counter-snap 5 years later, fans immediately began debating the true cost of bringing everyone back. What exactly happens when billions of people suddenly reappear in their original spots 5 years after they vanished? The consensus was clear: global pandemonium. People would return to homes that had already been sold. They'd show up at jobs that were already filled. They might even materialize in midair, above planes that landed years ago. This logic quickly sparked the theory that the consequences of the blip, as the event was officially named, would be devastating and would form the central backbone of future MCU projects. And the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier built its entire narrative around this very concept. We were introduced to a world struggling desperately to manage the sheer scope of this chaos. Refugee camps sprung up for the returned population. Extremist groups formed, arguing that the world was actually better off during the Thanos era. International borders had become unstable and meaningless. The show made it crystal clear: the hero's return was anything but a happy ending. It marked the start of a complicated, chaotic, and fundamentally unstable new world order. And those fans who had predicted exactly this kind of geopolitical fallout, they turned out to be absolutely right. The show, Lost, was packed with so many mysteries that new fan theories seemed to pop up every single week. But one of the earliest and most widespread theories focused specifically on the character John Locke. Right from the start, we learned that John had been paralysed and confined to a wheelchair before the plane crash. Yet the moment he arrived on the island, he was miraculously cured and walking again. Fans quickly theorised this wasn't just a coincidence or a simple miracle. They believed the island possessed unique, mystical healing properties. This theory became foundational to the entire story that followed, and the show kept confirming it. Rose, who was battling cancer, felt completely healthy while living there. The island could heal injuries and, as later revealed, even manipulate time and space itself. Eventually we learned that at the very heart of the island lay an energy source, a kind of light, responsible for all the anomalies. This meant that the fans' early guess about the island's powerful healing ability wasn't just accurate, it was the essential key to understanding the show's entire mythology. They truly grasped the core concept of Lost, right from the very first episodes. Christopher Nolan's film Inception gave audiences one of the most debated endings in cinematic history. The spinning top, the totem of the main character, Dominic Cobb, keeps spinning. If it falls, it's reality. If it doesn't, it's a dream. The screen cuts to black before we ever get the answer. But fans didn't give up. They proposed a theory that completely bypasses the totem. It's the wedding ring theory. Eagle-eyed viewers noticed that throughout the entire film, Cobb only wears his wedding ring when he is in a dream state. In scenes that take place in reality, the ring is noticeably absent from his finger. Now, let's look at that final scene. Cobb walks through the airport and greets his children, and there is no wedding ring on his hand. For fans, this became undeniable proof. The ending happens in reality, and Cobb truly returned home. Christopher Nolan himself has always avoided giving a direct answer, suggesting that for Cobb, it no longer matters. However, he has never directly refuted the ring clue. It's a small, easily missed detail, yet it provides a clear answer to the film's central mystery. And it was the fans who figured it out. In Disney's Gravity Falls, mysteries weren't just plot points. They were baked into the very DNA of the show. Every episode featured encrypted messages that fans eagerly decoded using various ciphers. One of the biggest secrets revolved around the author of the mysterious journals found by Dipper. A page containing a cryptogram flashed momentarily during the end credits of every episode. Fans immediately set about deciphering them and piecing the puzzle together. These messages hinted at the existence of a secret society and someone in town who knew all the deep secrets. Most crucially, the journal itself contained the ominous phrase, "Unfortunately, my twin brother." This sparked a major fan theory that Stan Pines, the owner of the Mystery Shack, had a twin brother who was the true author of the journals. The evidence mounted quickly. In one episode, Stan is shown wistfully staring at a swing set where two children once played. His house also featured strange symbols that matched those found within the journals. Then, midway through the second season, the theory was confirmed. It was revealed that Stan did indeed have a twin brother named Ford, a genius scientist who had written the journals, become trapped in another dimension, and whom Stan had spent his entire life trying to bring back. This reveal was a huge triumph for the dedicated fan community, who had literally assembled the mystery piece by piece. Right from the first season, Stranger Things captivated audiences with its nostalgic 80s vibe and the terrifying mystery of the Upside Down. But fans started digging deeper and suggested that the monster, the Demogorgon, and the girl with superpowers, 11, were two sides of the same coin. The core theory proposed that the Demogorgon was Eleven's dark reflection, a shadowy projection of her being within the Upside Down. It suggested that when she was stressed or actively using her powers, the monster would become more aggressive. And when she reached out to it in her psychic visions, she inadvertently opened the gateway to the real world. This theory gained serious traction in the season 1 finale, when 11 destroys the Demogorgon and vanishes right along with it. This disappearance heavily reinforced the idea of their undeniable connection. Later, the show's creators, the Duffer Brothers, confirmed in interviews that this interpretation was very close to their original vision. They explained that the Upside Down represents the human subconscious, and the Demogorgon is essentially a physical manifestation of 11's fears and trauma, brought to life by her own power. So yes, the monster and the heroine were far more closely linked than initially appeared, a relationship the fans intuitively understood all along. Video games are an endless wellspring for fan theories. One of the most famous involves the Mass Effect series. In the climax of the third game, Captain Shepard must make a choice that determines the fate of the entire galaxy. However, the conclusion was so ambiguous and, for many, intensely disappointing, that fans developed what they called the indoctrination theory. According to this theory, much of the final sequence doesn't actually happen in reality. Instead, it takes place entirely within Shepard's mind, who is actively being mentally influenced, or indoctrinated, by the Reapers. The presented evidence was compelling. Proponents noted that the colour palette of the final choices, red, blue and green, aligned suspiciously with the villain's ideology. Furthermore, certain sound effects seemed distorted, and key characters behaved inexplicably strangely. Fans argued that the correct choice was the destroy option, the red path, because it was the only one that truly allowed Shepard to survive, and crucially, reject the Reaper's mental manipulation. BioWare developers remained silent for a long time, but eventually released the extended cut ending, which added significant context and detail. While they never officially confirmed the theory, many of the new scenes and added dialogue fit the indoctrination theory perfectly, almost as if BioWare were winking at fans and signalling, "You were on the right track." For a large segment of the player base, the indoctrination theory remains the only true canonical explanation for that highly controversial conclusion. Let's head back into the world of Disney to discuss the dark side. Villains. In Beauty and the Beast, Gaston is presented as the main antagonist. He's narcissistic, boorish, and utterly obsessed with marrying Belle. But what if he isn't the real villain of the story? Fans, however, have proposed a fascinating theory. The true antagonist is actually the enchantress who cursed Prince Adam. Let's look at the facts. She cursed an 11-year-old boy simply because he refused to let a strange, unappealing old woman into his castle in the middle of the night. That is an incredibly harsh punishment for a childlike mistake. She cursed not only the prince, but also all his servants, who were completely innocent of any wrongdoing. She gave him until his 21st birthday to find love, or they would all remain cursed forever. She essentially hinged the fate of dozens of completely innocent staff members on the romantic success of a teenage monster. This theory received unexpected confirmation in the 2017 live-action remake. In that film, we see that the enchantress, in the guise of a woman named Agatha, lived in the village the entire time. She observed everything, but never intervened until the very end. This portrayal makes her character even more sinister and calculating. She didn't just punish him, she orchestrated a truly cruel social experiment. The show Dexter follows its titular character, a vigilante serial killer operating under the strict moral framework known as the Code of Harry. For 8 seasons, he maintained this code, focusing his murderous urges exclusively on other killers. However, the controversial series finale, where Dexter abandons his life to become a solitary lumberjack, left virtually everyone disappointed. In response, fans began searching for alternative explanations, leading to a popular fan theory that drastically improves the entire narrative. This theory suggests that nearly the entire run of the show is actually a dying vision that Dexter experiences while sitting on death row. The argument is that the real Dexter was caught and imprisoned much earlier, perhaps as far back as season 1. The subsequent seasons, therefore, are just his fantasies, his desperate imaginings of how he could have continued his work, found love, built a family, and perhaps even achieved redemption. This framework handily explains the numerous plot holes, convenient coincidences, and highly illogical events that allow Dexter to continually evade justice. It also accounts for why characters sometimes act out of character, understanding that their actions are merely facets of Dexter's internal, dying mindscape. Adding weight to this idea, former showrunner and head writer Clyde Phillips, who left the series after the highly regarded 4th season, revealed his original vision for the ending in an interview. Phillips intended for the final scene to be Dexter's execution, where, in his last moments, he would see the faces of all his victims flash before his eyes. This proposed ending perfectly aligns with the fan theory, and while the network ultimately went with a different conclusion, for many dedicated viewers, this haunting theoretical explanation remains the true culmination of Dexter Morgan's story. Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy is legendary, an absolute icon of modern cinema. But who exactly is he? The Joker himself tells conflicting stories about his past, and none of them appear to be true. Fans, however, have developed an intriguing theory. The Joker is a former military specialist in psychological operations, or PSYOPs, suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder. There is significant evidence supporting this claim. He demonstrates masterful proficiency with weapons and explosives. Furthermore, he is a brilliant tactician and strategist, capable of predicting the actions of both the police and the mob several steps in advance. His entire philosophy of chaos is seen as a direct reaction to the horrors of war he witnessed. He doesn't seek money. His only goal is to prove that civilization is nothing more than a thin veneer concealing inherent madness. He constantly tests people by putting them in extreme moral quandaries, perhaps most famously in the scene involving the two ferries. While this theory lacks direct confirmation, it so effectively explains every aspect of the character, his skills, his motives, and his particular brand of madness, that it has been widely accepted by a huge portion of the fan community. Ultimately, it transforms the Joker from a simple maniac into a tragic figure, a destructive product of the very system he seeks to dismantle. We're revisiting Breaking Bad once again, but this time we're diving into a theory regarding the origins of Walter White's fortune. Early in the series, Walt and his former partners, Elliot and Gretchen Schwartz, founded the company Grey Matter. Walt sold his stake for just $5,000, and the company eventually grew into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The official explanation is that he simply got cold feet about success and walked away. But fans have long speculated that the true reason runs much deeper. The theory suggests that Grey Matter was initially founded on Walt's groundbreaking research in crystallography. However, this research required expensive components, which Walt, being a poor student at the time, couldn't afford. So he started cooking meth to secretly fund his legitimate scientific work. This perfectly explains why he started producing the drug with such immediate ease and professionalism in the pilot episode. He already had the necessary expertise. According to the theory, he ultimately left the company because Elliot and Gretchen discovered his illicit activities and bought out his share to protect their burgeoning company's reputation. This theory transforms the entire series into a tragic origin story about a man who spent his whole life trying to escape the criminal underworld, only to be forced back into it when he received his cancer diagnosis. While series creator Vince Gilligan has never directly confirmed this, he has stated in several interviews that he really likes the theory and thinks it makes a lot of sense. Within the world of Harry Potter, there is a prominent fan theory centered on the Deathly Hallows, the story of the three brothers recounted in The Tales of Beedle the Bard, tells of three wizards who managed to cheat death and were subsequently granted three legendary gifts: the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Invisibility Cloak. Fans immediately noted striking parallels between this ancient story and the fates of the three main characters. Voldemort, like the oldest brother, was consumed by a lust for power and sought the most formidable wand, which ultimately led to his downfall. Severus Snape, akin to the middle brother, spent his life mourning his deceased beloved, Lily Potter, and ultimately died hoping to be reunited with her. And Harry Potter himself, much like the youngest brother, accepted his own mortality. He utilised the invisibility cloak, not for glory but for protection, and in the end, greeted death as an old friend. But the theory goes one crucial step further. If those three are the brothers, who then is death itself? The answer, according to fans, is Albus Dumbledore. He is the character who, at different points in his life, came to possess all three Deathly Hallows. It was Dumbledore who essentially gifted Harry both the cloak and the stone. Furthermore, his death served as the ultimate catalyst for the final battle. When J.K. Rowling was told about this elaborate theory, she was thrilled. She confirmed its brilliance on Twitter, writing, "Dumbledore as death. It's a beautiful theory, and it fits. The Terminator franchise has become notoriously confusing thanks to all the time travel shenanigans, but fans have always tried to find the underlying logic. In Terminator 2, Judgment Day, we learn that Cyberdyne Systems created Skynet using the chip and the arm recovered from the T-800 in the first film. This creates the temporal paradox. Skynet only exists because it sent a Terminator back in time to ensure its own creation. Fans dubbed this the predestination loop. The theory suggested that breaking this loop was impossible, and any attempts to alter the future only guaranteed its fulfillment. And surprisingly, Terminator Genisys actually confirmed this idea, albeit in a twisted way. In the new timeline, the heroes once again try to prevent Judgment Day, but it turns out that Skynet isn't just a military program anymore. It's a global operating system called Genisys. Essentially, by trying to destroy Skynet, the heroes only helped it evolve into a newer, more advanced form. This supported the grim fan theory that fighting Skynet is pointless because it's an inevitable part of technological development, and any actions taken against it only accelerate its arrival. In the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper's long-running arch-nemesis is none other than actor Will Wheaton, who plays a fictionalized, more villainous version of himself. Their feud began when a young Sheldon traveled to a convention specifically to meet Wheaton, only for the actor to be a no-show. Fans always found this origin story a bit strange and suspected there was much more to the story than met the eye. This led to a popular fan theory that the real Will Wheaton is actually the complete opposite of his on-screen persona. They theorized he wasn't truly mean or selfish, but rather a genuinely kind and considerate person who must have had a very compelling reason to miss that convention. Furthermore, fans believed his entire villain role in the series was simply an act, a persona he maintained purely to mess with Sheldon. This theory was eventually confirmed in a later episode. Will Wheaton reveals to Leonard that on the day of the infamous convention, his grandmother had tragically passed away, and he had been attending her funeral. He even tried to apologize to Sheldon, but the physicist had refused to listen. This revelation completely shifts the dynamic of their relationship. It turns out Sheldon had spent years hating a man who genuinely hadn't done anything wrong, while Will had stoically endured years of unwarranted attacks. This backstory instantly made Wheaton's character far deeper and more sympathetic, proving that the fans who believed in his inherent goodness were right all along. Die Hard is an undisputed action classic, but fans have always wondered, why was Hans Gruber's master plan so convoluted? Taking over a skyscraper, grabbing hostages, demanding the release of terrorists. All of that just to crack a vault and steal some bearer bonds. The long-standing theory is that Hans's initial plan was much simpler, and John McClane's unexpected arrival completely derailed it. Originally, Hans intended to quietly slip into the vault during the Nakatomi Christmas party while everyone was distracted. But when McClane showed up, Gruber was forced to improvise. He staged the entire terrorism spectacle, the hostages and the demands, specifically to distract the police and the FBI while his crew worked undisturbed on the safe. This popular theory was recently confirmed by the film's screenwriter, Stephen E. D'Souza. D'Souza revealed that in an early draft, McClane and Hans were supposed to synchronize their watches in one scene, revealing they wore the exact same model. This was meant to be a subtle hint that they were both, essentially, men of the system, just on opposite sides of the law. And yes, the screenwriter confirmed that McClane's arrival specifically forced Hans to escalate the simple heist into an act of terrorism. So, John McClane didn't just stop a robbery, he inadvertently provoked the crisis in the first place. The first season of True Detective follows detectives Russ Kohler and Marty Hart as they investigate a series of ritualistic murders linked to the Yellow King cult. Throughout the season, their investigation leads them to the influential Tuttle family, a powerful clan whose members hold high-ranking positions. However, in the finale, they only manage to catch one perpetrator, a groundskeeper named Errol Childress. Many viewers were left disappointed, believing that the true architects of the evil had escaped justice. But dedicated fans developed the flat circle of time theory, rooted in Russ Kohler's own philosophy. According to this theory, history is cyclical, and true evil can never be fully eradicated. Catching Childress wasn't the end. It was simply the closure of one loop in the spiral. The Tuttle cult will continue to exist, and new heroes will inevitably emerge in the future to challenge them again. Series creator Nick Pizzolatto later confirmed this interpretation in interviews. He stated that he deliberately left the ending ambiguous to illustrate that the world isn't simply black and white. The detectives won the battle, but they didn't win the war. This cyclical confrontation between good and evil, he suggested, will continue forever. Therefore, the fans who saw the finale not as a failure of the writing, but as a profound philosophical statement, were absolutely correct. The animated series, Samurai Jack, followed a samurai flung into the distant future by the villain Aku. Across 4 seasons, Jack desperately sought a way back to the past, but the finale remained largely ambiguous. 13 years later, the 5th and concluding season aired. This season was notably darker and more mature. Jack had seemingly lost both his legendary sword and his hope. Fans quickly noticed that the future world had drastically changed. It was harsher, and technology had advanced significantly. This led to a fan theory. A vast amount of time, perhaps several decades, had passed between seasons 4 and 5. The theory suggested Jack had stopped aging due to a side effect of his time travel, but the world around him continued to decay under Aku's tyranny. Series creator Genndy Tartakovsky later confirmed this theory. He stated that the 5th season actually takes place 50 years after the events of the 4th. This revelation instantly explained Jack's profound despair, the immense change in the world, and why the samurai had become so brutal and weary. 50 years of fruitless, continuous struggle would break anyone. This confirmation made the final season dramatically more powerful and tragic, and, once again, proved just how insightful the fans truly were. In the Star Wars universe, there's one character who became the butt of every joke after just one divisive film: Jar Jar Binks. But what if this clumsy Gungan wasn't who he pretended to be? A colossal theory surfaced on Reddit, proposing that Jar Jar Binks was actually a powerful Sith Lord, secretly orchestrating all the events in the prequel trilogy. The evidence presented was surprisingly compelling. Jar Jar constantly appears in the right place at the right time. His clumsiness in battle often resembles a highly sophisticated form of martial arts. He also uses hand gestures, suspiciously similar to Jedi mind tricks to sway people. Crucially, it is Jar Jar who proposes granting Palpatine the emergency powers, an act that directly leads to the creation of the Galactic Empire. The theory suggests Jar Jar was either Palpatine's secret apprentice or partner, maintaining an idiotic front so no one would ever suspect his true intentions. Ahmed Best, the actor who played Jar Jar, later confirmed that much of this theory was true. According to Best, the character was originally intended to be far more sinister, and his transformation into a major villain was planned for the subsequent films. However, due to the overwhelmingly negative fan backlash, George Lucas scrapped the idea and replaced the planned villain arc with Count Dooku. So yes, we were one step away from seeing Darth Jar Jar, and the fans actually figured it out long before the truth came out. The series, House of Cards, centered on the ruthless politician Frank Underwood, who stopped at nothing to gain power. One of his defining characteristics was breaking the fourth wall. He constantly addressed the audience directly, essentially making us his secret confidants or accomplices. Fans quickly speculated that this wasn't just a simple narrative device. The running theory was that we, the viewers, served as Frank's imaginary friend or silent confessor. Perhaps he was documenting his thoughts for a memoir or a tell-all interview. This theory took an unexpected turn in season 5, when his wife, Claire Underwood, also looked into the camera and addressed the viewer. Fans immediately theorized that Claire had always been aware of us, but had chosen to remain silent. Now, she was seizing control of the narrative. After Kevin Spacey was dismissed from the show, the final season was entirely dedicated to Claire, and it seemed to confirm this theory. Claire wasn't just talking to us, she was actively battling Frank for our attention, fighting for the right to present her side of the story. The finale revealed that the fourth wall was actually a battleground for their legacy, and the fans who had seen the device as something more than a simple gimmick were ultimately proven right. The original Jurassic Park features that iconic scene where the Tyrannosaurus Rex pursues the Jeep. Despite the characters urging the driver to speed up, the T-Rex keeps pace easily. The problem? The Jeep's speedometer clearly clocks them at around 35 miles per hour. Paleontology enthusiasts immediately cried foul, claiming this was scientifically impossible. Their consensus suggests that a T-Rex couldn't exceed 15 to 20 miles per hour. This speed discrepancy became a notorious scientific inaccuracy, often cited as a major plot hole. However, the sequel, Jurassic World, introduced a brilliant new theory that effectively retconned this mistake, transforming the error into an intentional plot point. In the renewed park, the dinosaurs are engineered through genetic splicing, mixing the DNA of various species specifically to make them more exciting and marketable. As one character explains, "Nothing in this park is pure. We've always added frog DNA to complete the genome sequences, and now we're making them bigger, louder, with more teeth." This line was the crucial missing piece. Fans quickly theorized that the original dinosaurs weren't pure either. Their genetics must have also been modified, perhaps specifically to enhance their speed and terror factor. This explained how the T-Rex in the first film achieved such incredible velocity. Jurassic World screenwriter Colin Trevorrow later confirmed that this concept was intentionally implemented to provide an in-universe explanation for the original film's scientific missteps. Thus, a fan theory officially served as a successful retroactive fix for a major scientific blunder. While the show Futurama is best known for its sharp humour, it also features some incredibly touching moments. One of the most famous involves Fry's dog, Seymour. In the episode Jurassic Bark, Fry finds his pet's fossilised remains and attempts to clone him. However, he backs out at the last minute after learning that Seymour lived for another 12 years following Fry's disappearance. Fry mistakenly assumes the dog simply forgot him and lived a happy life with the new owner. The final scene, which reveals Seymour, waited outside the pizza parlour for the remainder of his life, absolutely shattered millions of viewers. Fans, however, couldn't accept this devastating ending and created a popular theory to justify it. In the movie Bender's Big Score, Fry accidentally creates a time duplicate of himself. This duplicate ends up remaining in the past, back in the 21st century. The theory suggests that Fry's duplicate was actually Seymour's new owner. This means the dog didn't wait in vain. He lived a full, happy life with a copy of his beloved master. This fan theory became so popular and logical that the showrunners decided to make it official canon. In a subsequent season, the show confirmed this idea, showing that the temporal duplicate of Fry did indeed take care of Seymour. This allowed fans to essentially fix one of the saddest scenes in cartoon history. In the movie The Matrix, Neo discovers his entire world is a computer simulation. But what if that's not the whole story? Fans have developed an elaborate concept known as the Matrix within a Matrix theory. It proposes that Zion, the supposed city of free humans, isn't the real world at all, but rather another, deeper layer of simulation. The theory suggests the machines created Zion specifically for the rebels, the humans who reject the original Matrix. Zion offers them the illusion of freedom and struggle, but in reality they remain completely controlled. The evidence for this was circumstantial, but undeniably intriguing. For instance, how could Neo use his powers in the real world at the end of the second film, stopping the Sentinel robots purely by thought? And how did Agent Smith manage to inhabit a human body and physically enter Zion? The theory posited that this kind of reality-bending manipulation would only be possible if Zion were, itself, just another program. The Wachowski siblings, now sisters, never offered a direct confirmation. However, the Matrix online game, which was the official continuation of the original trilogy's storyline, dropped strong hints supporting this concept. Furthermore, the recent film, The Matrix Resurrections, placed the idea of multi-layered simulations and control over reality at its core. So, while the filmmakers never delivered an explicit yes, the entire trajectory of the franchise suggests that the fans were correct. There is no true escape from the Matrix. The first Avengers movie features a scene where Loki is captured, seemingly surrendering to Captain America and Iron Man. This always struck fans as odd, considering he could have easily overpowered them. Fans quickly theorized that this was actually a clever scheme. Loki allowed himself to be captured deliberately, intending to board the SHIELD helicarrier and dismantle the Avengers team from the inside out. His goal wasn't just conquering Earth, it was pitting the heroes against each other by exploiting their weaknesses and internal conflicts. He knew the Mind Stone scepter, which amplifies negative emotions, was aboard the ship. His calculation was simple. The heroes would erupt into infighting, the Hulk would lose control, and the resulting chaos would destroy the helicarrier. And his plan almost worked perfectly. The Avengers did begin to turn on each other, and it took the tragic death of Agent Coulson to finally bring them back together. For years, this was just a popular fan interpretation. But the Loki series essentially confirmed it. In one episode, we meet a Loki variant who successfully carried out this exact plan, defeating the Avengers and taking over Earth. This definitively proved that the God of Mischief's original strategy was never about brute force, but rather cunning manipulation. The fans who questioned his initial surrender had clearly cracked the code from the very beginning. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is an absolute goldmine for conspiracy theorists and dedicated fans alike. One of the most famous theories claims the movie is Kubrick's veiled confession that he helped the US government stage the Apollo moon landing. It sounds outlandish, but the supposed evidence is genuinely intriguing. For starters, the boy, Danny, wears a sweater depicting the Apollo 11 rocket. The infamous Forbidden Room number is 237. The average distance from Earth to the moon is 238,000 miles. Fans believe Kubrick intentionally changed the number by one digit to hint at a fabrication or hoax. In one key scene, Danny plays on a patterned carpet resembling a launch pad. When he stands up, it visually appears as if a rocket is taking off. Even the Overlook Hotel's backstory, that it was built on a Native American burial ground, is interpreted as a metaphor for the US government deceiving its own people. This theory was extensively explored in the documentary Room 237-1. There has, of course, never been any official confirmation, but given Kubrick's notorious perfectionism and his dedication to symbolism, many remain convinced that he truly embedded this secret message within the film. This is a perfect example of a theory that is so compelling it practically requires no further proof. Jim and Pam's relationship is arguably the central storyline of the iconic series, The Office. But fans have always wondered, what exactly was written in the note that Jim placed inside the teapot for Pam during the Season 2 Christmas episode? He took the note back before Pam ever had a chance to read it. It wasn't until the 9th and final season that he finally handed her the note. We never hear what the note says, but we see Pam's reaction. She cries tears of pure joy. For years, fans speculated wildly about the note's mysterious contents. Finally, Jenna Fisher, the actress who played Pam, revealed the secret on a podcast. She explained that the director asked John Krasinski, who played Jim, to write a deeply personal farewell letter to her, Jenna, as his co-star and friend, after 9 years of working side by side. Therefore, the emotional reaction we see on screen isn't Pam reacting to Jim's words, it's Jenna reacting to John's words. It was a highly personal and raw emotional moment that the crew decided to keep in the final cut. So, the fan theory that the note contained something deeply significant and personal turned out to be true, and even more touching than most fans could have ever imagined. In the Toy Story films, the toys' greatest fear is Andy eventually growing up and forgetting them. But what happens to the toys when that day comes? Fans quickly noticed that in one scene, Andy's mom wears a cowboy hat that looks remarkably similar to Jessie's hat from the second movie. Then, in Toy Story 3, we learn that Jessie had a previous owner named Emily, who also grew up and eventually gave her away. This observation led to the now famous theory, Andy's mother is the grown-up Emily. This theory perfectly explains where she got the hat and why she treats her son's toys with such warmth and understanding. She too knows the pain of letting a beloved toy go. It's a detail that makes the entire Toy Story narrative even more cyclical and profoundly moving. Lee Peet, one of the artists at Pixar Studios, indirectly confirmed the idea in an interview. He stated, "You know, I can't say if it's true or not, but I certainly like to think it is." While this wasn't a 100% official confirmation, for most fans it was all the validation they needed. It's a beautiful, poignant piece of lore that fits perfectly within the Toy Story universe, making the story infinitely richer. The role of the great eagles in The Lord of the Rings is a constant source of debate. The classic question is always, why didn't they just fly Frodo and Sam directly to Mount Doom? The simple answer is that doing so would have immediately drawn Sauron's attention. However, fans have taken this idea further, developing a theory that explains why Gandalf seemed so confident the mission would succeed. This theory suggests Gandalf had a contingency plan involving the eagles all along. He couldn't speak of it openly, fearing Sauron might learn of it, perhaps through Saruman or the use of a palantir. Crucially, according to this interpretation, his famous last words in Moria, as he plummets into the abyss, "Fly, you fools!" were not an insult. They were a direct, coded instruction, urging his companions to seek out the eagles and take flight. This explains why, in the climax, Gandalf arrives on the eagles to rescue Frodo and Sam from the slopes of the volcano. The ring is destroyed, Sauron's power is broken, and stealth is no longer necessary. This transforms Gandalf from merely a wise wizard into a calculating genius strategist who had accounted for every possibility. Filmmaker Peter Jackson himself weighed in on the subject, stating in his film commentary that he genuinely loves this interpretation, believing it could very well align with Tolkien's original intent. For dedicated fans, this endorsement felt like absolute confirmation of their favourite hidden plan. The X-Files was a show built entirely upon conspiracy theories. But one fan theory wasn't about aliens, it was about the main characters themselves. Throughout the series, Mulder and Scully shared immense tension and palpable chemistry, yet they remained strictly professional partners for years. Fans were convinced that they were actually in love, and possibly even secretly involved. They meticulously searched for evidence in their glances, their body language, and the way they routinely risked their lives for one another. Series creator Chris Carter long insisted that their relationship had to remain purely platonic. But in the Season 7 episode, Millennium, Mulder and Scully finally shared a kiss. Later seasons and films confirmed they had a child together. This was the complete and undeniable vindication for the shippers, the fans who championed the characters' romantic relationship. They had been right all along. The X-Files was not just a quest for the truth, but also a profound love story. In the animated series, Rick and Morty, there is a fan theory that completely changes how you view the entire show. In one episode, Rick delivers his iconic line to Morty, "I need you, Morty. We're going to have lots more adventures, Morty and Rick. 100 years Morty and Rick." But what if Rick is actually an older, grown-up Morty? The theory suggests that the original Rick Sanchez either died or disappeared a long time ago. The Rick we follow is actually a future version of Morty who became just as genius and cynical as his grandfather. This older Morty is now traversing dimensions, trying to fix past mistakes, or maybe just reliving the thrill of the adventure. Several key details seem to support this idea. For one, they both wear very similar clothing. Rick also occasionally shows an uncharacteristic level of care for Morty. Furthermore, the introduction of evil Morty proves that Morty is perfectly capable of becoming as intelligent and ruthless as Rick. Series creators Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland are notorious for messing with fans and never directly confirming any theories. However, in one episode, Rick transforms himself into a teenager, and he looks exactly like Morty. For fans, this was a massive hint that their wildest theory might be true. The theory adds layers of tragedy and depth to the show, transforming the entire narrative into a story about a never-ending cycle of self-destruction. The original Mary Poppins features a bizarre scene where a minor character, Mr. Dawes Jr., literally dies laughing after hearing a joke. This moment has always felt strange and a little unsettling, but fans have developed an explanation. They theorise that Mary Poppins isn't just a magical nanny. She's something much greater, perhaps a divine entity, or even a Time Lord from Doctor Who. She arrives to fix problems within families and then departs. But what if her role extends beyond mere assistance? What if she also dispenses punishment? The theory posits that the greedy and wicked banker, Mr. Dawes Sr., was the real issue. Poppins allegedly orchestrated a bizarre death as a way to punish him and free the Banks family from his oppressive influence. For a long time, this remained humorous fan speculation. However, in the sequel, Mary Poppins returns. Dick Van Dyke returns, the same actor who played Mr. Dawes Sr. in the original. In the sequel, Van Dyke plays the current bank chairman, and he explicitly states that his uncle, the original banker, died laughing. This line serves as a retroactive confirmation of a seemingly throwaway detail, instantly making Mary Poppins' character far more powerful and, frankly, terrifying. The fans were right all along. With this nanny, you simply don't mess around. In the Back to the Future trilogy, Marty McFly's actions in the past constantly reshape the future. But fans spotted a crucial detail suggesting he didn't just change the future, he changed himself too. At the start of the first film, Marty is just a regular teenager who loves playing guitar. But after his trip to 1955, where he essentially invents rock and roll at the school dance, something major shifts. By the end of the film, he returns to a much better 1985, where his family is successful and happy. The theory suggests that in this altered timeline, Marty became a true rock star. The evidence? Fans point to clues sprinkled throughout the trilogy. While Doc shows Marty a newspaper clipping about his children, at the end of the first movie, the timeline complexity is revealed later. In the third film, when Marty ends up in the Wild West, he discovers a tombstone bearing his own name and date of death. Fans put two and two together. In one timeline, Marty becomes a famous musician, but in another, he meets an early demise. Screenwriter Bob Gale later confirmed in an interview that they were deliberately planting the idea that the future isn't fixed, and that Marty had several potential fates, including that rock star career. So, the fans who believed in Marty's musical success were actually on the right track. And that's how it happened. 50 times now, the collective wisdom of the fan base has proven true. We've seen everything from universe-shattering plot twists to the small, poignant details that truly deepen our connection with beloved characters. These examples clearly show that there is a constant, ongoing dialogue between the creators and their audience. Sometimes the writers intentionally leave breadcrumbs for the most observant fans, and sometimes viewers discover layers the screenwriters never even considered, yet which turn out to be absolutely genius. That right there is the magic of pop culture. It thrives and evolves not just on screen, but right here in our discussions, our arguments, and our theories. Thank you so much for sticking with this long video until the very end. I hope you learnt something new today, and perhaps found a completely fresh perspective on stories you thought you knew. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if even one of these theories blew your mind. And please hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future deep dives. Now for the most important question for you. What is your favourite fan theory that actually came true? Or perhaps there's a theory you still desperately believe in and are waiting to be confirmed. Let me know in the comments below, and let's keep the discussion going.